Morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Haunted Huddle over coffee. I'm Lauren,
I'm next.
and today we're going to be talking about the Jinn, our awesome aliens conspiracy theorist. T will be leading the conversation today as we talk about the Jinn, which I have absolutely no idea anything about. So, T, take it away.
All right. So, Jinn are actually, they're kind of in the same realm as Fae, but I feel like they have a little bit more of like the ghostly apparition stuff. But after doing some research and, kind of reading up on stories, I think they're a lot less malicious than the Fae. And don't get me wrong, there are very angry Jinn out there. But some of the stuff that I have found on the Jinn just delight my little heart.
So, wait, just what?
So they are by definition, they are a supernatural entity originating from kind of Islam, but also just Middle Eastern or Arabic folklore. They are believed to have free will like humans, which I find kind of cool that like in a religious aspect they can actually be saved from damnation or they could be damned. Like they get judged like humans do.
Okay.
Which is why you have good Jinn and you have bad Jinn. But they're not genies. That is the biggest thing. They're not genies. They do not grant wishes.
Okay.
They are often believed to be created from smokeless fire or scorching wind. Which makes sense because a good portion of the Middle East is very desert-like.
What
minus,
would be smokeless fire?
And their depictions too kind of vary. Sometimes it could be a faceless woman. Sometimes it could be like a smoke-like entity. Sometimes they can change their shape to whatever will, so on and so forth.
So they're like skinwalkers.
They could take the form of animals. Yeah, like they could take the form of animals. I swear, there's at least something kind of akin to a skinwalker, at least in every culture. It may not be the exact same, but baseline, very similar across different cultures. They do avoid humans, though. Not all of them, because some of them will hyperfixate on one individual. And that's where some of these stories come from that I found. And I'm at least going to start with some of like the more light-hearted ones. And the favorite one that I found so far is a very territorial Jinn. This man went out, they stayed at a place with his friends, and his friends warned him not to sleep in this particular corner of the courtyard. And they're like, it's because there's a Jinn that sleeps there. He's very territorial. He does not want anybody sleeping there. So, of course, he's like, you guys are just pulling my leg. Like, there's no such thing. Obviously, there's no such thing, right? This guy had slept in it. And then when he woke up, he found himself on, like, the other side.
Like, what do you mean other side?
He literally he picked a spot in that corner, and then he woke up on the opposite side of the courtyard. And he thought it was his friends that did that. So, of course, he's thinking he's getting pranked. Well, he writes a note saying, "Stop pranking me." And this is where the Jinn had enough of his shit. Stop sleeping in my corner. The next morning, he found everything, including himself, just kind of tossed to the other side. He was pushed off his bed, and his bedding was thrown to the other side. And he saw the note, and it said, "Stop sleeping in my spot." And mind you, sometimes, like, they kind of connect themselves to families, too. Or they connect themselves to places, they connect themselves to families. There's a family that had dealt with jinns. And the mother finally had enough. She sat on the bed, and there was a lady sitting next to her. And I'm going to go ahead and read it from here because it's a funny story. This is word for word the story. One time, My mother-in-law was sitting in her bed. She looked over and saw a woman sitting in the chair next to her bed with her long pointy fingers and a face with very sharp angles. She was so frustrated and annoyed with the Jinns. Mind you, they see a lot in their house and they're no longer afraid. You know, the family's just like, you know what? We're coexisting at this point, right? So she was really annoyed, reached out and grabbed the Jinn by its wrist. She yelled, "Get out! I'm tired of you! Get out!" And it started to pull its wrist away and eventually tried to bite her because this woman would not let her go. And before the Jinn could bite her, she let go and the Jinn vanished. That's probably one of my favorite things, is like telling this person to get out.
You know,
No.
That's a dangerous game, though.
I think that's like so funny because they're little tricksters.
They are, because like I've looked into them, and you know why I've looked into them, because I need them for research purposes.
I mean, after reading about them, I'm like, they're
great, interesting, and
they're so fascinating.
And it's kind of like how Fae are, because they're relatively diverse. Obviously, you're going to hear more about the
The Jinn wrote him a note. It was like, "Yo, stop fucking sleeping in my spot, bitch." But not essential. But not really. He didn't say those words, but he's like, "Hey, don't sleep.
Stop sleeping in my corner.
Stop sleeping in my corner.
My spot." All I can picture right now is like, anybody who's watched The Big Bang Theory is just telling me like, "That's my spot. Get out of my spot."
Jinn is definitely the definition of Sheldon.
Yeah, he's just like, "That's my spot."
There's another kind of entity, and it's from Filipino folklore. And the only reason I know this is because like I follow somebody who like will read stories about that, because it is her culture and it is like her background. And most of her audience are from the same kind of culture and background, so they're all sharing their stories. There is a similar entity, not completely aligned with Jinn, but like in that behavior of like, "Hey, this is my spot, or this is my space, get the fuck out."
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what they're called to save my life.
I'm not gonna lie, Filipino folklore is really scary.
They give zero fucks. Things will fuck you up. Without a second.
Well, Lord, I'll say the story again, because I think you might get a laugh out of this one, right? So, this person's mother-in-law, their family has dealt with Jinns a lot. This woman finally had enough. She woke up and there was a lady with pointy fingers and angular face sitting in the chair next to her bed. She was so fed up. She grabbed the wrist of this Jinn and was like, "Get out. I'm tired. Get out." And started pulling on the wrist. Well, the Jinn is like trying to pull their wrist back. And before it could actually bite her, because it started to try and bite her, the woman let go and the Jinn disappeared. Because they do that. They'll like they have ethereal, like, they don't have like physical like bodies. Like, they do not have meat suits. They
just have meat suits.
They're like ethereal.
But like I was saying, like that is a dangerous game she was playing.
But if you've had enough, you've had enough.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, like you said, like the family had been dealing with them for a very long time. So after a while, like with anything, you get kind of desensitized.
You do. And if you've lived in a haunted house and you've made peace with like your ghosts, like,
or you're just over it.
You're just over it.
I lived in a house when I lived in Middle Island. It was right by the local middle school. And that house was so haunted. Cabinets would slam when there would be nobody else home. Doors would be left open. Lights would like go on and off. And it came down to the words like, "Can you fucking stop? I'm just getting annoyed. Please. You do you. I do me. If you don't like it, tough shit, because I'm not leaving. Yeah, we didn't hear from her very much after that. I think it was a woman.
You think it was a woman?
I think it was a woman, because the people that lived in the house before us were the ones that built it. And they had, like, a gigantic, like, seance circle in, like, the little side woods of the house. And I mean literal seance circle. Big stone in the middle, and they had Mary at the far north corner of it.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
they pulled out the works.
You know, you have no idea. Like, it was freaky, and we were very scared to, like, take it apart, especially since there was the Virgin Mary was right there. So we were just like, we're gonna leave this alone. And when we had moved in, there was, like, wax all over the house, like, all over the carpet, like, red and black wax everywhere. There was crystals everywhere. And yeah, no, but we do know that somebody died in the house, so I don't know.
Makes sense. And apparently Jinn can marry you. They will claim you as theirs.
Yeah. They're like Fae. Like how Tony said, they're very...
They're like a mixture of, like, a ghost and a fae. That is, like, the best way I can think of it. But there's another story of a girl who woke up with, like, a henna triangle on her hand. And when she was showing it to her family, they were like, oh yeah, no, you're married now.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Jinn can lay claim to a person for whatever reason they so choose.
Obviously.
It sounds bonkers and wacky, but, like, it is the funniest thing. Nope. I mean, these are just some of the more lighthearted Jinn stories I found, and I'm actually now thinking about it. So back when my aunt passed, my dad was in Iraq, which is where you hear a lot of more of Jinn stories, of them being, like, in the Middle East and in that region, right? My dad was working in Iraq, and, you know, I also think of this because, you know, maybe there was, like, something, but I honestly think a Jinn visited my dad, because it was after my Aunt Maria had passed. He was really upset about it. Obviously, that's, like, his sister. That was his closest sister that passed. And in the middle of the night, his AC just at random stopped working. So he woke up and it was like 90 something degrees in his room, right? But it gets weirder because they looked at the AC. There was nothing wrong with it. They essentially turned it back on. They're like, yeah, there's really nothing that could have made it come off. You had it on. It wasn't on auto, so it didn't just shut off by itself. But then when he was, you know, doing something with the jet, he was up on a ladder and he could smell, like, her perfume. And when you're working with, like, jet stuff, all you smell is metal and jet fuel.
Yeah.
And, like, whatever else is in there. So I feel like my dad may have been like, I don't know, Jinn, like, was like, oh, you seem sad. Let me just do a couple things here, you know. He thinks it was my Aunt Maria trying to, like, get back at him, but, like, I don't know. It seems kind of like, I feel like a Jinn just, like, was like, you know what? I feel like you need to get pranked one more time. But those are some of the more lighthearted ones. Some of the more scarier ones involve, like, people actually dying. Like, I think in one of the stories I was reading and going through, there was a little girl, and this happened to, like, I can't remember where exactly they were at, but it involved the father hearing his daughter scream, and he went to go see what was going on, and he went to go into the room, but the Jinn had locked the door.
I don't mean to laugh because that's absolutely horrifying, but, like,
it's horrifying. Your daughter's sitting there screaming and you're trying to, like, get in to the room and the door was locked, so he ended up having to break the door down. And as soon as he did, of course, it's, like, shattered because he couldn't, like, get the door to come undone, so he ended up breaking this door down. And of course, it's old wood, so he was doing some work on the house and it was old wood. This man ended up passing from gangrene from, like, the rotten wood in the door.
Wait, what? Gangrene?
That's what they said was the diagnosis of, like, what he died from, because he got sick after that. and he got so severely sick that he ended up passing from it. And it, like he was cut up from the splintering rotten wood.
Not over this, but I looked up something because we were talking about how Jinn can just like claim to a person and fucking marry them, and I was just like, I need more information because this is fucking wild. Apparently, take this with a grain of salt because I'm looking at like one of those like question threads. It's not on Reddit, so I feel it's a little bit more admissible. And the question somebody asked is obviously, can a human and a Jinn married, and is this permissible? And the fucking answer is so long.
Oh god.
The answer is so long, and the first fucking little blurb of this is the question of whether a human may marry a Jinn is a controversial one. The majority of jurists are of the opinion that such a marriage is not lawful, but some consider it to be lawful.
Look, I guess you're just screwed. So if you try to have a dating life,
And they put a lot of citations from, I believe this is from the Quran. Yes, this is from the Quran about not specifically Jinn, but it's more of things that like will allude to how this could be perceived as like a permissible kind of contract.
Like an actual marriage?
So that's wild to me.
I think these are like the coolest things, and I
There
know
are
not
even
all
stories about people, I don't know if they're true or not, there are stories about people actually having children from this kind of thing, and that's like a whole Virgin Mary situation as far as I'm concerned, and that's horrifying. I don't like that.
Yeah, no.
But their legend is also kind of cool too, because in some like Arab traditions, the Jinn were said to be the original inhabitants of Earth, and
Mhm.
they were battling other life forms like long before humans, came into existence. They were battling the Hin and the Bin, and the Hin are made of wind, and the Bin are made of water.
Okay.
And then in some like Islamic and pre-Islamic societies, they may have been worshipped too as deities.
That I know from looking through things. Very few societies, if I remember correctly, but they were still considered very powerful beings. And I think that's why a majority, I want to say, of the population is rather like hesitant and kind of fearful of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. But yeah, so some of the other more scarier stories involve like there was a woman, I think it was like back in like the 2000s. And, when you think of like places like Lebanon, or you don't really think of like a lush forest, but they border the Mediterranean. So it's going to be green around the coasts. This lady went on a hiking trip by herself, which is
Don't do that.
don't do that. Especially as a woman, and especially in a foreign country that's not as, just don't do that. Make sure you have the buddy system. But she had jogged, and the first sign that whenever you're in an area and everything goes quiet, something doesn't want you there. Animals won't even like go near there. Because you should at least be hearing like some form of birds, you should be hearing bugs, you should be like hearing some form of wildlife. Well, first red flag was it was silence. There was nothing. She found an old building, like an old brick building. And out like by the doorway of this building was a figure standing, fully cloaked, but he had like hooves. And I can't remember what exactly she did, but she didn't stay long. She actually started to like back away from this figure because she got close to the building to see like, what is this? I haven't seen this. And she ended up, turning around, not going near, backing away from the figure, because I guess the figure like tried to reach out to grab her and stuff, but like she had started leaving. And as she got far enough away, she turned around and she couldn't find that building, nor the Jinn. involved with the building at all.
You almost got yoinked.
Yeah. Sounds returned. She was fine. She made it back to to her hotel and stuff, but she was kind of startled by this. And for good reason. Like, you don't know what's happening, right? She ended up talking to a maid who got very serious with her, mind you. The maid was like, don't go out by yourself like that again, is essentially, because far worse things could have happened to you after that meeting.
Yeah.
And there's so many different stories just based on people's, like, I feel like these are far more common than, like, something else that you'd find in folklore. I don't know about now, because I feel like with all of our cameras and everything,
I don't know. Like, I'm going to tell you all this, and please don't be mad at me if I'm going to plug another podcast for a hot minute, but I love her because she covers a lot of Middle Eastern, like, mythologies and stuff, and stories, personal stories that her listeners have, or, like, her friends' family have on these kinds of things. Go look up Stories with Sapphire if you have no idea who she is. I love her to bits and pieces.
Yes, they're fantastic.
I have never listened to them, but
she covers a lot of stories like this. I like her because she covers a lot of these stories, and they're not something you hear on normal media. Like, you hear a lot about ghosts and just generalized demons and fae are popping back up again, but you don't hear a lot about any Middle Eastern mythologies or supernatural occurrences, any of those kind of entities. They're not really quote-unquote mainstream.
They're absolutely fascinating. And a lot of the information on them is strictly based off stories and how they come to you, because sometimes it's like you see them, but they could just be like an ethereal, like somewhat humanoid body, but they'll have like the glowing green or blue eyes. That's a popular depiction of what they look like. They can take the form of certain animals, like snakes, spiders, so on. But then they also have they're essentially just like supernatural humans, right? At least the way I'm thinking of it, because their souls can be saved just like anybody else. Because in case nobody, Allah, especially with Islam, Allah, God, Yahweh, it's the same person. It's just different names for the same person.
And before the Christians come out and go sideways, relax.
Relax.
We're not discrediting anybody's gods. We're not trying to.
That is simply what I was taught.
Well, main points and views of these deities really just points to them generally being the same, if not just very similar.
Well, I know in the Jewish faith, correct me if I'm wrong, there's like 700 names for God. I don't know if that's across like all religions or just Judaism, but like there's a lot.
I think it's kind of cool that like they're kind of seen as like essentially like superhuman, and the fact that they've also been known to supposedly help bring in like the antiquity, like a lot of antiquity age stuff, like especially with building, said to believe that they help with the pyramids. And the thing is, like, they know that they're stronger than humans. They know that humans will fear them, which is why like some of them can be just flat out malicious, because like fuck you in particular.
So really, just like certain humans.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's an asshole until you prove me wrong, so.
I think that's where you and I definitely differ. I think everybody's sweet until you show me you're a dick. Then again, I work in customer service, so yeah.
And this is why Lauren's gonna end up as a fucking statement on Dateline.
I am probably gonna die by helping the wrong person one day. But at least I'll die helping somebody, so.
Yeah, helping somebody continue their fucking body count and not in the good way.
Ugh,
No, you might have a
no!
Jinn. There's a story about a girl who what? No, hold on. It ends well. It doesn't end well for the bully, but it ends well for the girl that was bullied.
No, T, we were talking about adding to a body count, and that's not in the good way. And you were like, well, like, it's okay to kill people.
You might have a Jinn.
Oh god, Patreon's gonna eat this edited this week.
I'm trying to find that one specific story about the girl that was bullied. Her parents brought back this chain from their visit, and she wore it. And was it a chain or was it a locket? Either way, it was like some sort of like necklace, right? So this girl had been getting bullied pretty bad. Well, the bully broke the chain off the student's neck. And then what happened? And the girl started to speak in a male voice while her body contorted in strange positions. It was said that the Jinn had traveled from a faraway place. Meanwhile, the bully's tongue swelled and almost prevented her from breathing. Long story short, teachers were called into the room. Apparently, her parents knew and had gotten the chain for their daughter from a shaman and to hold the Jinn in.
I said, just be a nice person. It's not
and
that
you know
hard.
what? Fuck around, find out.
No, just
okay, but can I just say that is the worst thing to do ever from any kind of story I've heard about Jinn, because you said earlier they have free will. And then we've got motherfuckers going around fucking trapping them to things. And then we wonder why things are so angry with humanity.
Stop touching shit.
You're pulling this kind of dog shit. Okay? Karen, imagine if somebody took you out of your lovely home, doing whatever the fuck you want to do, making shit-ass comments on TikTok, Reddit, who have you, and they just fucking bind you into a box.
This is your new home for it. You know, I can understand if a Jinn is like pissed off, but the fact that the Jinn kind of like took over the one girl's body and then the other girl faced the consequences of her actions.
You talking about like the Jinn being like just trapped inside of like a vessel?
Why? No, but genies were associated with Jinn for a really long time. As far as I'm aware, Jinn don't really do the whole I'll grant you 3 wishes kind of bullshit. I'm sure like anything else, they'll do a favor for a favor. If they're feeling awfully generous, but...
Just ask nicely or give them something. Like, in one story, one of the parents taught, I guess, a Jinn about like prayer and like was praying for them sort of thing. And the Jinn, you know, I guess it was teaching like this person was teaching the Jinn child like prayer and
there's a Jinn child?
Jinn child. That's the way I've looked at it. Is Jinn child. I'm trying to find it, but like the Jinn kept trying to bring them gifts, but the father was like, "No, I don't need any gifts. Like, please stop." And then they finally worked something out where it's like, "Well, because you taught us this, and we're appreciative of you teaching like us these things, we want to give you something." So the father's like, "Just protect my family. That's it. That's all I want. Just protect my family and just the generations down below."
A favor for a favor.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think they're the out of the kindness of my heart for a random fucking stranger.
I mean, if they're feeling really generous, by all means, that'd be pretty cool. Because again, they do have free will, so if they decide they want to be a nice person, by all means, let's be a nice person or a nice entity, whatever have you. And then there's like I think another story too. There was a family. They came home. They were driving home, so they were in the car, right? And they stopped by these railroad tracks. And I can't remember the reason, like, why they stopped by these railroad tracks. But they looked over and saw that there was, like, kind of an abandoned building. or like a building of sorts that had been there. And they see like this faceless, featureless figure start running towards them. Nobody, like the driver of the car, didn't hear his mom or his cousin or his aunt like screaming in the car. But this figure got pretty damn close to the car and was running at them. And even as like he heard, like I think he heard his mom like screaming to like hit the gas, and it was what broke him, which is why people think like they might have some uncanny ability to like stop your motor functions and stop you from like actually doing everything, even though your brain is telling you this is a bad situation. You need to leave. Your survival is at stake. So
they really trigger that fight,
right?
flight, or freeze tactics.
So he hears his mom actually screaming, which is what brings him out of the trance, and he hits the gas. But the thing is still following them, running after them.
What did you do to this thing?
And that's the thing, nothing. They just drove. They were driving home, and they had stopped by these railroad tracks. And, you know, sometimes there's a stoplight there, sometimes, but there's no train. May have been a stoplight, may have been a stop sign, but then they, you know, noticing the figure, and it's starting to run at them, kind of like, where's my money at, bitch? But, yeah, that's probably another example of, like, a malicious Jinn just come to fuck shit up. That's the thing, these people did nothing! They were
like,
just
seriously,
on their way
I'm
home.
gonna play Jinn Advocate for a
How
moment
dare
here.
you?
I'm gonna play Jinn Advocate for a moment here. How do we know that they're just like, it came out of nowhere? It's like when there's people who go, I don't know what I did.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, well, let me pull up my receipts. How do we know that these people, no offense,
genuinely, they could have not known what they did. Like that dude who was sleeping in that Jinn spot.
But no, they told him flat out.
He thought his friends were pranking him.
You know what? I think there are certain things your friends will prank you about, but when it's
after the fact.
And the thing is, like, your friend's like, hey, don't sleep there. That's the Jinn's corner. That's a stupid thing, like, for your friends to, like, hey, don't do this. For, like, no reason. And then you go and do it anyway, and your friends are like, yeah, dude, you really shouldn't be doing that. I do think, on, like, some levels, there are certain things that people just, like, you know, prank each other with, especially something that's stupid. Like, hey, don't sleep there.
Okay, but you know, and I know you know, that there are people that will joke about those things, like, genuinely joke. So then when they're being for real about it, it's literally the boy who cried wolf.
Mm-hmm. Or people doing the prank saying it's this, but then in actuality it turns out it was never that, but your friend's just dicking around with you. In which, this case, he thought his friends were dicking around with him, but when he woke up, saw that he was off his bedroll, his bedding was on the other side of the corner, he saw the note that said, stop sleeping in my spot. The lights were on. There was nobody else with him. I don't know if I would want to have an experience with a Jinn. I think it'd be pretty cool if it wasn't a malicious one. That would be fantastic. But I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna hope for it. No, I already deal with enough like spooky shit in my house and in Nex's house. So
hey.
Yeah.
Mine have grown docile in their old age, okay?
Mine have grown docile in their old age.
They have. I've yelled at them far too many times, because they don't scare me anymore, but, like, they thrive on scaring my mother.
Well, it's just the thrill for them is
and,
gone.
like, new people that come into the house.
Didn't Lucas not like Lauren?
No, Lucas didn't like Becca. Apparently, I wasn't in the room. Like, I had left my room. I left her in my room. She was being a little bit of a turd, too, but I was just letting it by. Trying to just enjoy having my friend over. I left her in my room. She asked for my headphones to, like, talk to one of her other friends on the phone. And I was like, okay, well, here. I was like, do you want a soda? Because I'm getting one. I went to go get us fucking sodas, and you've both been in my house. My room is not that far from the kitchen.
No, it is not.
So within the time that it took me to leave my room, go to the fucking fridge, get the sodas, and come back, by the time I came back, she was sitting outside of my door. I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Why are you like this?
And she was just like, something just happened. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I asked her to move, and I opened my door, and I used to have, I'm sure everybody has known somebody who's done this, or, like, has done this, but, like, I had the fucking, like, one of those little coffee cans just full of my fucking, like, drawing utensils, like my pens, my pencils, and everything. And my desk used to be on the wall where my door is. And my bed is across from it. And she was sitting on my bed when I had left her. And I came back in, and this fucking can of pencils and pens was thrown across the room. And pens were everywhere. And at first I was just like, I just got fed up with it because she was, like I said, she was being kind of rude and a turd. So I thought, like, you're fucking wrecking my room now. I didn't even think that it could have been Lucas. Instantaneously, that straw just snapped. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And she's like, no, something threw it. It literally just fucking flew off of your desk. I was like, yeah, okay. And then, like, once she had left, which wasn't, like, shortly after that, I wasn't in my room, but I heard, like, very faint snickering. I was like, oh. Instantaneously, it took me a minute, because I heard it as I was coming back to my room from walking her out. I was like, oh, you little shit.
Little shitmonger.
Little shitmonger.
I don't know. Now, thinking about it, I think Lucas might just be a Jinn.
Don't say that.
Well, I think Lucas might be a Jinn. Maybe he's just like now at a point he's like, this human no longer needs me. Did you wake up with like a henna triangle on your hand?
No, I have not.
At least he hasn't married you.
Thank you. He's been with me since his birth, as far as I'm aware.
You know, in all this time, it could also be a twin that was just never made.
No, because my mom suggested that, and he got really mad for like a week.
Uh-oh.
Grouchy.
Because my mom tried to be super chummy, and he does not like her.
I find that hilarious that, like, he doesn't like your mom.
Mm-mm. He thrives on scaring her. He's died down recently with doing it, specifically because my mom doesn't stay awake by herself anymore. Because he'd do that on purpose. Because, like, you've both seen my house. Like, my hallway's in a very odd L shape, and my room's on that little, like, foot of the L shape.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't actually
serif.
Yeah, you can't see my door. And to look down the hallway, you see right into the living room and straight onto the end of the sectional, which is where my mother always sits. And she told me all the time, and I haven't heard anything about it recently. She told me all the time for like 7 years that she would see somebody like peer around that corner of the hallway where my door is and then leave when she took a look at it. And like, because of how tall the figure was, she thought that it was my father. And you've both seen my dad.
Yes.
But she would think that it was my dad, and she'd call, she'd be like, Joey, no answer, no nothing, and like, she'd walk down the hallway, and my dad's passed the fuck out, and I'll either be passed the fuck out, or like, watching a video or playing a game, and she doesn't say anything to me, like, the first few times this happens. But where she drew the line was apparently one night, she heard singing downstairs.
Singing?
Like, she heard a man singing, and I know neither of you have witnessed it, but I love my father, but he's so tone deaf. But she heard, like, genuine, like, decent singing. Like, not really loud and boisterous, but just very quiet, but very audibly a man singing. downstairs in the den, in the dark, where she knew no one was.
We could do a whole thing just alone about, like...
And I was up and I had my headphones on and I was in here. I heard nothing except for her running down the hallway. She opened my door and she goes, "You better tell him to knock this shit off." I was like, what the fuck's going on?
What did I do?
And then she starts telling me about all the times she thought she saw somebody looking down the hallway. It's like, I'm sorry? Like, I can't control him.
Look, when I was spending, when I was dog sitting and stuff, I was like, times I'm so glad that Lord was there because sometimes it felt kind of weird to be there by myself.
Did you feel like you were being watched?
Every night.
Yeah. A lot of my friends have told me that, even when I'm here with
dogs.
Yeah.
Where were you walking the dogs?
Down Wilson and around.
Just up and down the street?
Yeah, just... Yeah.
How far did you go? Because that might just be the neighborhood, because the neighborhood's creepy.
I think we did the whole loop. Like, we went all the way down to the end, and then we made a left.
Mm-hmm.
We looped around.
Yeah, we made a whole... No. Yeah, we did all right turns. There was no left turns.
Oh, yeah.
So you went up towards the main street, the main road, and just went that way? Yeah, no, that's just the neighborhood. My neighborhood's really creepy.
Yeah, no,
I don't even like walking it at night because just the feeling of being watched or like something's following you. I fucking completely off topic like the rest of this conversation. But I was walking the dog the other day and like I just walk up and down like the street that I live on because I refuse to walk around the block when it's really dark.
Mm-hmm.
I was walking up towards the main road and it was like 11 o'clock at night. It was dead, but the dog had to go pee. So I was like, okay, we'll take you out. You'll pee real quick, maybe poop, and then we'll go back inside and go the fuck back to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I heard whistling.
No, you didn't.
I straight up heard.
No, you didn't.
And I stopped. And like, Kenai heard it too because he was looking around. But like, he didn't think anything of it. My dog continued on. And I was like, we are not going that way. We are going the fuck home. I don't care if you pee in the house. Like, we are not being out here.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard it like 3 more times until I got into my driveway and it stopped.
You didn't, you heard nothing.
I hated every second of it. I was like, we're leaving, goodbye. Just fucking Appalachian Mountains rules. You didn't hear anything. You didn't see anything.
So, I was also kind of looking through and stuff, but there is different types of jinns.
Okay.
Do tell.
So, I mentioned like the hin and bin, which
Aren't they
were
different?
which were water and wind.
Okay, but they're not Jinn, are they?
Well, some sources say yes, others say no. And a lot of these things, especially with Jinn, because there's so much stuff that is erased due to like the fact that anytime a huge religion moves into an area, stuff gets erased.
Everything else.
Yep. That's why Norse or like Nordic folklore, some of it, especially with like their mythology, a
lot of Celtic mythology kind of got buried under a rock and forgotten about.
Yep. So the same goes for Arabic folklore or anything like that. But there's there's one called the Ifrit, which are thought to, they usually frequent ancient ruins. And these ones particularly protect Egyptian burial grounds. And if you try to like open these without anti-spell, they will kill you.
What's the password kind of situation?
Yeah, like essentially like, or just don't open stuff you're not supposed to open and bad things won't happen to you, right?
Something that this world needs to start following more often before we get another fucking pandemic.
And then I think this is where they And then one of the other types of Jinn, which is where you get kind of genies and Jinn kind of mixed up, but apparently they are a type of Jinn, but they're called Marids, and they are rather large. They are thought to be the most powerful, and a lot of modern understandings is based off, a lot of it's essentially like our modern day genies and how they operate.
Okay.
They're able to grant wishes, and is likely the source of the three wishes legend. But, like in the understanding of the folklore, it's not just, I wish to be rich. What's the cost of that? What would be the cost of that? Like when you wish for something, it gets twisted into something else.
Yeah, because you have to be painfully specific.
It's like, rich in what? Dogs, cats, sunshine. And so there's more with the hin. These ones they tend to appear as dogs or other animals, but they are often spotted in places like mostly Middle East and India, but there's a connection with these. So, like in World War II, there would be legends of dogs luring soldiers to their death. Or just disappear. We don't know where they went. John, or Jan, however you pronounce this one, they're actually the more docile of the jinns. They tend to live in the desert. They've frequently interacted with humans. They're friendly. They tend to appear in the form of whirlwinds and white camels. But they're mischievous. So they may be nice, but they're gonna fuck with you a little bit. But it's also been known that they would help humans with their own war struggles. And as long as you fight for a holy cause, you essentially have them on your side.
That's actually really cool.
And
I don't know why, but I like things like that where supernatural beings or will assist, even though it's not a spoken agreement or anything.
It's just not in there. As long as you're doing it for a good reason, it's okay, yeah, I can get behind this. Here you go. And this one I think is kind of cool because they have one called a Kareen. But it is believed that every person in the world is born with their own. So essentially like a Jinn that's attached to you.
Like a meta?
Yeah. It's part of the human that causes them to do bad things and sin. So it's essentially the little devil on your shoulder telling you should do this shit.
Maybe that's what Lucas is.
Maybe. You could train them to become a servant, is what I'm reading. But it's thought the process takes many years and can be dangerous.
Well, I mean, yeah, if they're sitting on your shoulder telling you to commit mass genocide, then trying to tell them to do something you want might not be the best option.
Right. Then, benefits of them doing it. The Prophet Muhammad turned his into a Muslim and did away with his evil nature entirely. But the benefits include obtaining information on any person in the world. Every human has a Qareen, so if you make your Qareen your servant, it can talk to others of its kind or report back to you. Knowing how to cure illnesses, finding lost and stolen things, influencing others. Qareen get that person's, person to do whatever they want. Being aware of anybody who is coming to see you before they arrive.
I think now that a lot of demons that are listed in the Ars Goetia that have these abilities, which is 90% of them, I feel like it's just Christians throwing everything in this pile.
To be honest, Christians did take a lot. We definitely know Islam has taken a lot from their folklore, which is why Jinn are referenced in the Quran. Now you have the Qareen, you have the Shayateen. They are evil, and there's no hope for salvation.
They have decided fuck you and all of your things.
They pledge their service to the evil one, Iblis.
Yes.
Sometimes. The Shayateen are pure evil and are known to cause many troubles in the human world. They're sometimes used and controlled by strong dark magicians. Ooh. They have the ability to cause illness and even death, and they are capable of much destruction and cause a person to lose everything they have. Perhaps most dangerous of all, they are known to have the ability to possess humans. While other jinn can do this, theirs is essentially like you need an exorcism. Are you okay?
Yeah, people just scare me.
But yeah, that's all I have on the jinn. I think it's kind of fascinating, and I kind of wish I had known more about them.
I'm just very proud that we got through one entire episode without the mention of alien.
I can do that.
No.
Honestly, when you were talking about the Jinn in the cabin and how it vanished, I was waiting for the alien comment.
Yeah, same
Look,
here. I was just like, where
I
are the
believe
aliens?
are out there, but but sometimes it's okay to put the aliens in the back seat and just tuck them in for another time.
Oh, wow.
Put the aliens in the back
Who are you?
seat.
What have you done with tea?
Aliens in the back seat. They're my children. They're my triplets.
In the fucking car seats.
I mean, I would put them in the back seats.
Just little gray.
Little gray aliens in the back seat of my car. I have the space for them. They're very tiny.
Alright, so I think that wraps up this episode of the Haunted Huddle Over Coffee. Bloopies for the Patreon. Yes. The aliens in the back seat.
The aliens in the back seat.
They didn't get hurt.
Just make sure they're wearing their seatbelts. Alright, guys.
Anyway.
No, we have to give them booster seats.
Alright. Guys, until next time.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.